Top 6 Show, the original multi-club fan channel. Make sure you're following us now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The link is in the description below. To the Top 6 Show. It's Monday. Only less than a week away now for the Premier League football to return. I know we're all absolutely chomping at the bit, but there's lots to talk about today. But first of all, hit like buttons now. Please subscribe and turn on the bell notification button if you have not done so already. We've got a brilliant panel for you tonight. We've got Man Like G with us representing Liverpool. Deji's back with us supporting Tottenham. We've got Mo Gender who's here. We know he's an Inter fan, but it doesn't matter. He's here to stick it to everybody's clubs. Man Like Lewis is here again to entertain us and thrill us with his great football knowledge. And this is why I enjoy the show you and KJ and Rory did the other night with three of you. Very good. I watched on my rare nights off. And making his debut today, we have Giuseppe. I got that right, Giuseppe, yeah? You did tell me, Giuseppe. Yeah. I weren't doing that because it's Italian. That's how I talk. Giuseppe is on the show with us as well, repping Arsenal tonight. And there's lots to go into. We're obviously going to talk Everton, points deduction. We're going to talk Chelsea and City, what could be their fate if they're found guilty. We're talking a bit of transfers on the show as well. But I did want to start with a bit of news that's just broke in the last half an hour to 45 minutes. And it wouldn't be a normal football week without something going wrong at Manchester United. And I'll go to Mo first on this. But it's been reported, and I thought we all saw this coming, that Raphael Varane and Erik Ten Hag have had a bust up. And Raphael Varane wants out and he's likely to leave in January. Thoughts on this, mate?
Do you know what? It's not about Raphael Varane personally. It's now every player that is not gonna get game time and thinks I'm better than this is gonna say, no, I want to go. He's gonna throw a tantrum. Like, I'm not looking at it at Raphael Varane himself. Like, forget about Raphael Varane with the bust up with Erik Ten Hag. Now he's gonna open the door to any player. If Luke Shaw comes back and he's not good enough, he's gonna say, no, I want to go now. Bruno Fernandes, if he falls out of favor, he's going to say, I want to go now. This is not a healthy environment for anybody at the club. Like, look at Manchester City. If you sit on the bench, like Riyad Mahrez sat on the bench and he was all right. He picked his moment. Now, Raphael Varane, instead of him proving himself again and saying, no, I deserve a spot because, yeah, I'm better than Harry Maguire or whatever, on the pitch, prove it. Instead, he goes to the media or he goes to his friend or he goes to whatever and say, no, I want to go. I'm not happy with the situation. It's just a reflection on how the club is going at the moment, is how the squad is responding to competition. Nobody wants to prove that they're good on the pitch. People just want to play based on names, which is, I think, is not good for the coach, that he cannot make everybody happy. Like Mourinho used to do that at Inter, at Real Madrid. Prove yourself on the pitch, you'll get a starting spot. It's not about your name. It's not about your media. It's not about your friends. It's not about your achievements that you did 2, 3, 4 years ago. It's about you on the pitch. And we have seen Raphael Varane comes on, miss passes, not knowing where to stand. But instead of him, again, it's all about the environment. And I don't want to see this in any club, in my opinion, because it's just disrupting everybody else. Because now it opens the door to everybody else to do the same. I'm not playing. Oh, no. Show me the door. I want to go. I'm going to get a better contract somewhere else. This is unprofessional from Rafael Varane. I didn't expect that from someone who won that many competitions internationally and with Real Madrid. That on the first opportunity that you're not being a starting player, you're throwing a tantrum like a little kid as you're like 16, 18 years old. This is absolutely atrocious. It's like a little kid. You're like, he's not getting the toy. No, I'm not playing anymore. Come on, just be better than this. It's just,
I don't know.
If he wants to be like this, let him go.
Mo, I think you're being a little bit too harsh on him, in my opinion, and not critical enough on Ten Hag. Yeah, this is a 30-year-old French international. You know what I mean? He's done very well in his previous club at Real Madrid, and he's come into Manchester United, an absolute joke of a football club, with a manager that commands no respect for many of the players, and he's been dropped from the Manchester derby for tactical reasons. And now he's got Harry Maguire playing in front of him. I think that you're being way too critical. I'm not a massive fan of Varane, but I think you're being way too critical on Varane. I think this again shows to me that Ten Hag is not managing these players properly. I think it proves to me again that these players do not respect Ten Hag. And I understand why they don't, because he's not really achieved anything in football. And this is, you are right on, this is the state of Manchester United right now. Players are not happy. They're not happy. They don't want to be there. They don't want to play for this manager. And anything that goes wrong, the players want to leave. And I completely understand. But I think you're being a little bit too harsh on Varane. I think he's got every right.
Can I ask you something, LB? If he was playing, do you think he would have asked to leave?
No, obviously
flat
not.
out. Thank you. So it's not about respect or not respect for Ten Hag.
No, but that's a silly question, Mo, because this goes back to the point. This is a 30-year-old top-class international player who's been dropped from the Manchester derby for tactical reasons, where Johnny Evans is playing in front of him. That is just completely insulting to Raphael Varane. It's not about whether or not he's playing. It's the circumstances in which he's been dropped. You can't just say if he was playing, would he have asked to leave? Probably wouldn't have. But the fact is, he's been dropped for Johnny Evans, a 36-year-old who was playing for Leicester previously.
So do you believe that Ten Hag wants to lose? Do you believe that Ten Hag thinks that Raphael Varane is better than John Evans and Maguire at the moment, and he would drop him? You think that?
Varane is better than Johnny Evans.
What you're saying, what you're saying is that Ten Hag wants to play the worst players. He's choosing to play someone that will lose him the game.
I don't think
and he would put LB. What you're saying is that because it's tactical reasons or whatever, you're saying that Ten Hag is stubborn, that he's not playing a player that you think is going to win him the game, is going to make him better. That's what you're saying. Because 30 years old, international.
Yeah, but I think that's better than saying what you're saying, criticizing the player, because Varane is better than Johnny Evans. That's a fact. He's better than Maguire. That's a fact.
That's what you think. The manager doesn't think
we know
that,
but the question is, why is Varane not starting then?
Because I think Ten Hag does. I think Ten Hag is out of his depth, Terry. I think he's out of his depth, and I think he's overcomplicating things, playing Johnny Evans and Maguire over Varane, which is not necessary. Surely there's no United fans out there that thinks that's the correct thing to do. But then you've got Mo saying that this is Varane's fault. He's being unprofessional. The guy's been dropped for Johnny Evans. He's probably looking at Ten Hag going, "What are you doing? Why are you dropping me for? I'm not the cause of this problem." And then, rightly so, the guy deserves to leave. He's just come from Real Madrid. He's not come to Manchester United, sat on the bench with Johnny Evans. What you say?
Sorry, LB, to cut you off. You're doing exactly what Varane is saying. He's exactly thinking like you. I'm a French international. I won the World Cup. I won Champions League. I deserve a starting place based on merit, not based on performances. You're doing exactly what Raphael Varane is thinking. You're actually you think that because you have been playing well before, you deserve automatically a starting spot. You're assuming that Varane at the moment is better than Johnny Evans and Maguire, and you think the manager knows that, and he's starting Johnny Evans and Maguire just to spite Varane or something. There is no reason.
But you can't have it both ways, though.
There is no manager in the world, LB, that would start a player that he thinks is better.
Okay.
Unless there's a personal vendetta there.
Okay, so you can't have it both ways, though. So what's Varane meant to do? Just sit there and watch Johnny Evans and Maguire play every week?
Yeah. When
he's not going to do that, though, he's a top professional. He wants to be playing top-level football. He's got Bayern Munich knocking on the door, Juventus knocking on the door. He's not going to sit there and watch Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans think the
can I just say that, do you know what? Mo, let me just jump in a second, mate. Like, I would say that as a United fan, I understand what you're saying. There will be 100%. And I think in a vacuum, in an isolated circumstance, it makes complete sense. He's a superior player. He's playing behind Johnny Evans and Maguire. And I understand there's an element of embarrassment about that and confusion because he's better. I don't think he can play 2 games a week, but nor can Johnny Evans either. However, the problem is, as a United fan, I can't look at this in isolation. I can't look at it in a vacuum. I have to look at what I've seen other players do under Ten Hag, and then I look at what players have done under previous managers. Rashford, when Ralph Rangnick came in and he was suddenly on the bench, within 2 weeks of being on the bench, all the stories came out, players looking to leave, the players looking to move on. We have seen this time and time again over the past decade because player power rules at Man United. And typically, a lot of the players that say they're going to force a move out end up surviving that manager, start for the new guy, have a resurgence in their form, and end up doing the same thing again. So I understand where you're coming from. It's why I've said recently about this takeover. I think that they're probably going to have to, whether people like it or not, get rid of the manager because relationships are going to be damaged. But they have to stop the player power element. And my view's always been this. I know your club's successful at Man City. So if a player like Jack Grealish, who's won it all at club level now, is sitting on the bench for Doku for a period of time, because you're a successful club, they'll wait a bit longer. They'll be more patient. They'll be more professional because you are winning. But I believe that the reason that you're winning is because player power has never been allowed to be prevalent since your new owners came in 2009. So it's a little bit chicken and egg. I understand you want to treat players with a certain level of respect, and you want to give them, you want to treat a World Cup winner like Varane with prestige, and you understand why you don't want to see him dropped for someone like Johnny Evans. But at the same time, what Man United have lost is there hasn't been since Jose Mourinho, since the Glazers refused to sell Pogba and Martial, and the players were backed. The manager has lacked authority at Man United, 110%. And every time a manager challenges a player, especially a big player, for the past 6-7 years, they come out on the losing side. And for me, at some point, something's got to give in the overarching argument. And that's how I look at it as a United fan. I find it really hard to just look at. I knew this was coming, this story, by the way, because I've seen it so many times in the past decade. So what you should write at the start, LB, is 100%. United are a joke of a club with the way we're run. And what we're seeing now with Varane and the manager is just a symptom of all the problems at our club, I feel.
No, you are right. Listen, I'm not advocating players just down tools. The point is, in this unique situation, Raphael Varane is not going to sit there and do what Mo says. He's 30 years old. He's on the decline now. If he's going to have some big clubs after him, or he's going to get a big payday in Saudi Arabia, he's not going to wait for Johnny Evans and Maguire to make mistakes for him to get back in there. If he's got an offer to move in January, he's going to do that. And the fact is, this is happening because Ten Hag does not have the respect of the players. Otherwise, this wouldn't happen over something that happened a couple of weeks ago, and all of a sudden he wants to leave. So that's the point. He's not gonna do what Mo said. He's not gonna sit there and wait. He's 30 years old. He's gonna make the move. But this all stems from the players not respecting Ten Hag, in my opinion.
Listen, I don't disagree with you that he should go. It doesn't matter for me. And it shouldn't matter for any Man United fan. If a player shouldn't be there and doesn't want to be there, he shouldn't be there. My point is, I'm criticizing what he's doing. That is instead of him in quiet saying that I want to go and finding a solution, now it's a public information. Now he is going against the manager. He's saying that I want to go. This is unprofessional for me. If you want to go and you're not happy with the situation, you find another club that will pay the money, and then you go get your paycheck. It's understandable if you're not happy. But to go public and say this and that, I think this is unprofessional. And it doesn't matter if you're 35, 33, 30. It doesn't matter for me. If Jack Grealish tomorrow is not happy, he wouldn't go to the public and say, I'm not happy. He would find another club and ask the club respectfully to go. This is what I call professional.
I hear you on that, Mo. What's your take on this? Your club, you haven't really had a lot of these issues for years since you've been successful. Do you understand where the player is coming from, being frustrated because he's been dropped for Johnny Evans? Or do you think there's the element here of United got to take control of these situations?
I think both LB and Mo are both right, though. I think what they're both saying, that both things can be right in this type of unique situation. Because you are talking about Raphael Varane, we can't ignore the history that he's obviously come to Manchester United with. But then I do side with Mo in that sense of, just because you ain't playing, that doesn't mean that you're going to come out here and start making noise. And, regardless of whether it is Johnny Evans or a 16-year-old who's playing in defense, if the manager thinks that this guy is performing better than you, works in the tactical setup, you got to sit on the bench and just hold it down. You know what I mean? And you've got to work your way up, because that doesn't bode well for you in the future, if I'm being honest. Clubs can't, another big club, yes, they might look at him because he's Raphael Varane, but then at the same time, they might just be in the same situation when he gets dropped again. And then what happens? Are we going to be, I've just paid all that money for someone like Varane, and I'm just sitting there thinking, I don't really know. To be honest, I'm laughing because I'm just why is it Manchester United? Every single week, there is always something about your club. If it's not allegations about something, it's the players not wanting to play, leaving, ownership. There is something just evil going on inside your club that you can't seem to get rid of. You've changed managers, you've tried to sell players, you've gotten new players in, you've tried to potentially do a couple things a bit differently, and everything's the exact same as if this was 5 years ago. It's just as you said, it's like carbon copy. I'm just watching the same thing. Oh, you said you knew that this was going to come out. That shouldn't even be a thought process that, oh, I know something's going to come out in a couple of weeks' time that Raphael Varane's going to be angry or whatever. That doesn't make any. This is Manchester United, and all we ever hear, you guys are honestly behaving like a Championship, League One type of club in terms of the mentality of things that are going on. Like, I'm actually surprised that you're still able to command this level of respect around the world, because top players can't be looking at Manchester United and saying, you know what, I would love to go down there and, you know, play my football there. That can't be the truth. No way.
I couldn't agree with you more. And a lot of United fans get offended by it, but I don't. It's the truth. And you're offended by it because it hurts them. That's the problem here. And I remember when a lot of United fans that love Pogba and love Martial, and I've seen it all through the international break, all the comps of them both being put out again. And, oh, we ruined them, guys. And I understand that logic to a degree. But I said the day that it came out that the club sided with the players and didn't get rid of Martial and Pogba. I love both of them, by the way, especially back in 2017, 18. They were really good players. They were, you know, their whole career still in front of them pretty much. And I said to everyone at the time, this is a slippery slope moment. You know what we're speaking about? We won't mention it, but what we're talking about behind the scenes, off camera, it's because you like Pogba and Martial. Some people, a lot of United fans did. You sided with them in the player versus manager argument. But the problem is when you set that precedent, at some point, a manager you like and respect is going to be treated in exactly the same way, and it's going to go wrong. And in this circumstance, a lot of people don't like Ten Hag anymore. They want him out of the football club. So they see these moments and go, great, this is an opportunity to get at the manager because this can help get him out. It'll help give me something I want sooner rather than later. But the problem is you keep setting a standard and you keep setting a precedent that will hurt the club later on down the line because it becomes part of the culture of the football club. That's why every player that joins us goes backwards. It's why every manager ends up in exactly the same situation. It's putrid. And that's why I find it such a difficult argument to focus on it in a vacuum and as a singularity, because it isn't. It's a 10-year-old pattern all the time. And, you know, this is then going to kick off. It's what the press conferences will be dominated by. It will then put more pressure on Maguire and Johnny Evans. The fans, not all of them, well, then any mistakes happen from then, it goes, oh, you should be playing for it's just, and how do I know this is what's going to happen? Because I've seen it now for 10 years straight, and I've been talking about it online for 10 years, and I just know what's coming, which is why the new ownership or the new part ownership is so important. And one of the most important things they have to eradicate is player power, because it still hasn't gone away. And whether the manager puts an arm around their shoulder like Ollie and tries to be their friend, or tries to be more of a disciplinarian like Jose or Ten Hag, they all end up in the same situation. You know, they say that about relationships. If you're with 5 different women over 15 years and each relationship ends for the exact same reason, the likelihood is the women weren't the problem, it's you. And that's the problem that I have with Man United. So I don't feel any anger towards Varane at all, because he probably doesn't even realize what he's doing is wrong, but he's in an environment where it's normal and it's just what people do. And he's probably witnessed it himself 4, 5, 6, 7 times and thinks, well, I'm going to do the same thing because I'll either get what I want and then move somewhere else, or the manager will get sacked and I'll get my place back anyway. So what's the point of him having to work hard?
So just to add one last thing, it probably for me points another picture towards Manchester United's transfer policy of when you're getting these stars of buying the Casemiros and the Varanes. These players are, I get what Mo's saying, but these are the best players in the world. They're not coming to, compete with other players or whatever. They're coming to start week in, week out and get paid. That's what they're there for. It becomes very difficult to drop those sort of players. So I think United also need to look at their transfer policy going forward. Stop buying these players who are upwards of 28, who are sort of being sold by the massive clubs, the Real Madrids, for example, like the Casemiros and the Varanes, because it makes it very, very difficult to drop those players compared to somebody else. Like, I don't know.
The standards and behavior, LB, the standards and behavior are so much lower at our club. They come in, they're used to a much higher standard of behavior, culture, attitude. I think it's a culture shock. And I think it's funny how everybody gets eroded. Every single player gets eroded by the way we behave. No matter how good they are when they come in, anywhere between 12 to 18 months after they've signed, they go backwards. Look how good Casemiro was last year. I don't believe his legs have just gone over the summer. I don't. Standards are low. Varane, standards are low. Bruno was the only one who lasted a little bit longer when he came in, scoring, creating, gone backwards. Everyone. So that's why I find it hard to hate on the players anymore, because they're just as much a victim of how poorly we're run as the fans are, in my opinion. Yes, they're paid a lot of money and people say they shouldn't behave like this, but it's very hard. For me, it's easier said then done. It says here, no one is bigger than the club. No, yeah, I agree. But the Glazers run it in a way, and they allow behavior that makes people think they're bigger than the club, or it enables players to be bigger than the club. And until you eradicate that, you can't stop players behaving like this. It's impossible. Varane's ability on the ball is a myth. Varane has never been a great ball player. Ten Hag clearly trades defensive ability for ball playing ability. I don't think it's tactical at all. I get where you're coming from, Jimmy, but I don't think he's dropped Varane for anything tactical. I think they've had a falling out, and that's why he's dropped him. So it's I don't think it's that at all. If they patch things up, I think he'll get back in. Ricky's here says, LB, these were the best players, or else Real Madrid wouldn't have sold. Were they the best players, or Real Madrid wouldn't have sold them? These are declining players looking for a rest on their last big paycheck.
He's right. I think he's right. And again, this is what United have done for a long time. You know, they did it with Zlatan, Schweinsteiger. You could argue they did it with Di Maria, or that's probably a little bit less. United, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I do hear you on that. Viewers, let us know what you think in the comment section below. Boys, I want to go to Giuseppe first on this next talking point. I keep seeing these stories. Arsenal and Chelsea both heavily linked to Ivan Toney. Now, I wonder, what is he worth the £70 million price tag, maybe even higher, that's now being discussed? It's reported today that Chelsea will likely put in a big money offer for him in January. Is this a player, in your opinion, that no matter what happens, Arsenal needs to make sure they sign ahead of Chelsea? Is it a must-have in terms of January for you?
A striker is a must-have, and a number 8 is a must-have. So depending on the price for me, they must-have. No, because if they offer anything around 100+ million, then I'm sorry, then we might have to look elsewhere. Arsenal they're just not going to sell that. We see it last January with Mudryk. Chelsea outbid us. They know they can do that. They've got money coming out of everywhere. So for me, I think Toney is my guy. That's the guy I want. It's a personal preference thing. I love the guy. I think he's got the right work ethic. I think he's the right type of player that we need. We're not really replacing Jesus, in my opinion. We're bringing someone in to accompany Jesus, where you can rotate, you can play one different type of games, you can play them together. So I think Ivan Toney's a great quality player. I think people say Osimhen and that. If Ivan Toney's going, if Chelsea are bidding 100 million for Ivan Toney, that's because Osimhen's going to cost them 150 million. Like there's no way that. When people keep saying, oh, why would you go for Toney when you can get Osimhen? Osimhen's going to be at least 50, 60 million higher than whatever they ask for Toney. For the style, I think Toney's the guy. And I would say Arsenal need to go all out for him. But at the same time, we can't leave ourselves short like we always do. We can't go and sign Toney and spend all our budget on Toney and then not buy a midfielder, because I think that's as important for us this season. If we want to go and win the league, that is, if we want to go and compete and try to win the league, we need at least one midfielder and a striker. And I'm talking a quality midfielder and a quality striker, not just anyone. So I would love him. Chelsea can outbid us. We know Chelsea can. But then can the player have sway? Players do have a say in transfers. I don't care what anyone says. If Mykhailo Mudryk last year wanted Arsenal that bad, he would have sat and said, I'm not leaving unless I get Arsenal, and he'll get Arsenal. So you see it with Raya. A couple other teams wanted him for higher prices than what we paid. They didn't get him. The player obviously pushed a bit more for Arsenal, in my opinion. So listen, it's down to Toney. I think if you're the player and you're Toney, you've got to pick Arsenal. I think it would be stupid to pick Chelsea. Maybe that's my bias against Chelsea. But I just don't think he suits Chelsea the way he'll suit Arsenal. And I think if he wants to win something within the next few years, I think Arsenal's more of a destination where that can happen than Chelsea. Yes, Chelsea have the capability of just clicking all of a sudden next season and winning something. We know the caliber of players they have, but that's ifs and buts. I think Arsenal look right now like we can win the league this year with the right additions to the team. So I think, yeah, so if I was Toney, I'd become an Arsenal. We know Chelsea can outbid us. They can outbid anyone near enough. We've been told Arsenal have these FFP things. We're close on the FFP. I don't really know. But yeah, for me, I think that's who we got to go for, striker-wise.
Can you offer him an 8-year contract, though? That's the question.
No, I'd never offer him an 8-year contract regardless because of his age. I just think
Yeah, that's the big question.
I want to throw a question to Deji here. Chelsea or Arsenal? I know you don't like either club. You're a Spurs fan. Where do you think he's best off going for a player it will be his first big move, but his last big move at the age that he is? Should he go to Arsenal that are on the edge of winning something big, or should he join this Chelsea project and maybe be the goal scorer that sends them back into title challenges, the ability to get back into the Champions League? Where do you think Ivan Toney's best going?
Yeah, I think this is a simple answer. I think when you look at Ivan Toney's profile, I think actually Chelsea probably suits him more. I say that because the way that Chelsea are set up, what they need and what they've been lacking is someone who can just bury the ball in the back of the net. And what you get with Ivan Toney is somebody who can bury the ball in the back of the net. I think with Arsenal, I disagree with my learned friend. I think he will be all right, but I think there'll be a lot of rotation. The whole thing with Jesus, who's going to be the main man? Ivan Toney needs to go to a club where he's going to be the main number 9. Is he going to be the main number 9 at Arsenal? I think that's a question mark. But also, I just think, even though you say Arsenal are on the brink of maybe winning something, I do feel like the Chelsea project is probably more exciting. We saw the kind of hustling or battling between Liverpool and Chelsea over Lavia, and Lavia picking Chelsea because he felt that was probably a project that suits his playing style, more exciting project. Pochettino seems to be cooking now a little bit. If I was Ivan Toney, I'd definitely go Chelsea. That probably makes more sense in my opinion.
More exciting? What are you saying, Deppy? Chelsea more exciting project than you?
I don't know if you have a little
exciting project.
I don't know if you've just got a little bit of Arsenal hate there, like which is fair because you're a Spurs fan. I'm not saying that it's clouding your judgment, but to say Arsenal ain't exciting, he's going to be playing with 2 of the most exciting wingers in the league. We've got the most exciting centre back in the league. We got Declan Rice that's come into the team. Yes, people might think he's overrated, but he's a quality player. You're going to have Odegaard playing there, no matter what people want to say about his form this season. He's a quality player. It's a team to say that it won't suit him and Chelsea will suit him more. That's just. He's
going to be the main. He's going to be the number. He's going to be the main man.
I don't like this.
Is he going to be the main man at Arsenal?
Here's the thing. As a football fan, I hate this thing of this guy is just the main man. No, you come and prove yourself. We're a big club. If Arsenal want to be a big club like Man City, no one's guaranteed in Man City. No one signs and is just guaranteed to be the star of Man City. If they don't perform, they don't become the star. You've got to perform to be the star in big teams. So you come and make yourself the prime number 9 in Arsenal Football Club. You make it that you can't be dropped. Haaland went to Man City last year and made it to the point where he can't be dropped. And the way other players are rotated at City, he wasn't really rotated. And City were playing with a false 9, similar to Arsenal, a similar system, and they fit Haaland in, and they made it work. And look at all the goals he scored. He's the top goal scorer ever in the Premier League. So to say he won't suit Arsenal and we can't fix it to make him work, I don't know. I don't agree with that.
Giuseppe, so you actually agree with him? You're telling me that Ivan Toney, if he hears you talking, he's going to choose Arsenal over Chelsea. Deji here is saying that he wants to go to be the main man. It's his last big contract. He wants to score goals. But you as an Arsenal fan telling him, yeah, come in, battle it with Jesus, see who's better. He's going to say, no, I'm going to go to Chelsea, start every week, score abundance of goals. You're literally saying what Deji's saying.
Well, no, because you're talking like he ain't going to have competitions with Nkunku. Like, I think Nkunku's a better player than Jesus in a very similar fashion of play style. They're both kind of false 9s. And I think to say that he's just guaranteed to start in Chelsea, I think is also not true.
Well, I think he's definitely guaranteed to start at Chelsea. So yeah,
he's guaranteed to start at Chelsea. Come on,
you're talking with a Chelsea but you haven't seen Nkunku in Chelsea yet. What about if Nkunku starts next game and from then he's scoring goals every game up top? Then your argument will change. For me to listen, you got to get people with the right mentality. Ivan Toney should come in with the mentality of, I score 20 to 30 goals a season in the Premier League. I'm going to be the starting guy in this team. And then you make yourself the starting guy in the team. That's just how I see it. I don't think any player should go anywhere. If you want to be going somewhere and guarantee yourself football, Toney, go and join Aston Villa. Well, is he guaranteed in Aston Villa with Ollie Watkins? I don't even know. So listen, for me, you've got to say that he's more suited to Chelsea, I think is wrong. Yes, maybe you could say it's more exciting because Chelsea have an abundance of money, but with that comes an abundance of players. You say that he's guaranteed to start in Chelsea, but look how many players they got. Look how many wingers they got. None
I
of
mean,
them are
look,
guaranteed to start
I'm not-
anywhere.
No, I
By
hear
the
you,
way,
mate.
when I said that, I actually think that Arsenal, like if you are a sane player that wants to win now, which is he wants to win now because he's older, I think he should join Arsenal. I think Ivan Toney along with Gabriel Jesus together, if they get a number 8, I think their starting 11 is as competitive as everybody else. This is I just have to clear that out. Like me agreeing with Deji regarding the starting place is different than actually who should he join. I think he should be joining Arsenal, of course. Like, come on. We know that Arsenal are a more stable club than Chelsea, aren't we? Are we saying otherwise? Is anybody here thinks that Chelsea is more stable than Arsenal at the moment? I don't think so. I think we actually have no idea. Like people keep saying Pochettino winning, but Pochettino is playing good against teams, the bigger teams, because they attack him, they try to press. But against slow blocks, he still hasn't figured it out. We don't know if against Sheffield United or Everton away, Chelsea will win. But we know that Arsenal at the moment, 1 point behind Man City, they haven't played the best football, but he can be the guy who come in and they play the best football again. And I think they're closer to winning the league this year, at least this year, than Chelsea next year. Well,
Funny enough,
talk about it. I was going to say, does this not all show, and this is no disrespect to Toney, because I like Toney. I think Toney's a really, really, really good striker. But then you just said, obviously, Seppi, about, getting someone like Osimhen, who I think is also another good striker. He'd be maybe like 150 million. Can anyone name like any other strikers out there that would be available that, we could sign, who are top strikers that could realistically come in? Like, I feel like we're almost scraping the bottom of the barrel for strikers anyway. Like, if they're not already Haaland, who's at Manchester City, if you're not Harry Kane, who's at Bayern Munich, now we're literally looking at all strikers, maybe Osimhen potentially, who are kind of on the same level. Like you mentioned about Nkunku and Toney. Let's just say, we think that Nkunku is going to come in and probably do as well as we think he is. It's like the same level as Toney. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like unless he's going to show another level, which we don't know. But all of these strikers, to me, all sound like they're all the same. So really, does it make that much of a difference? Like, you've got Jesus already. You mentioned about him obviously battling with Toney. I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, Jesus is like the same level as a Toney anyway. So are you improving the team that much? Like, I don't really know.
I think it'd be improving the team, bro. I think it would. Listen, I think it's going to be an interesting one because I don't think it's. I think it'll be a difficult decision about where he goes. To be honest with you, I think going Chelsea is an attractive move for Toney, but so is obviously going Arsenal. I don't think it's an easy decision for him at all. But another thing about Nkunku, we don't even know where this guy's going to play. Is he going to? People are just assuming that he's going to come and play as the striker. But I've seen him a few times, and he plays everywhere. You know what I mean? He's very versatile. So we don't actually know if he's going to be the striker yet. We have no idea. But listen, it's going to be whoever gets him. I think it's a great signing. There is a talent drain in football, bro. You are right. I think that's why United got someone like Højlund, because he's probably the best of the rest. There isn't them elite level strikers out there. There is a big talent drain. The one thing I would say is Toney's a very, very good player. And whoever gets him, I think it'll be buzzing. And because of that, they're going to pay a high premium because there's no one else out there. Brentford know they've got a player who scores goals in the Premier League and that they can hold everyone to ransom. So listen, I don't know where he's going to go. I think he could go anywhere. It's going to improve both sides. But the only thing on Nkunku is he going to be a striker? If Nkunku, obviously they're probably not going to tell him this. I don't know, but the only thing is if he's speaking to Chelsea and Chelsea are like, yeah, Nkunku's going to be the striker, I might favour Arsenal because I think after a month or so, I think he'd move Jesus out of the team. I think he'd be better for Arsenal than Jesus personally.
Do you know what's really interesting? I get all the arguments, and I think both are attractive for different reasons. I do believe what it will really come down to is which one offers in the best wages. And that's not even a dig. Like, at the end of the day, that really matters to players. If one club says there's 150,000 a week, the other one says there's 190,000 a week, that's also going to sway him. But I do think there's a world where he can play with Nkunku. I do think there's a world where he can play with Gabriel Jesus because they're not the same type of players. Now, Ivan Toney can play deeper and hold the ball up, but I think there's a world where they can play together. And we've seen number 9s become popular again. We saw marauding fullbacks be popular. Now it's the inverted type. Playing to strikers again could be the next phase or something that was old becoming new again in football. And you never had two out-and-out number 9s. You used to have a number 9 and a number 10. Before they were called number 10s, it was just the second striker, the kind of the Teddy Sheringham, Chris Sutton-esque. And there was a number of them in the Premier League that were very, very good at that. And you could have a situation where you could start Gabriel Jesus and Toney in games, and they just play next to each other. And Gabriel Jesus is just that little bit deeper, as an example. And in fact, Toney's so talented, you could rotate that. One plays 9, then drops. It can be very hard for defenders. So I think there's so many options for Arsenal and Chelsea if they get either. And I do think he's a player. There was a super chat that came through that I thought was interesting. I'm going to try and find it here. I want to pose this to you all. It says, Toney hasn't been proven against low blocks yet. Would that be a concern that Brentford don't come up against teams that sit behind the ball too much?
I think
Very, very
obviously,
good argument. Absolutely.
I think it's a good argument, but I think Toney, the type of player that Toney is, he's a nightmare for defense. We've seen him; he's a nightmare for defenders and stuff. I don't think the low block would really affect him because he's also good in the air. Like he's got all the. For example, with Arsenal and the way we play with the low block, we get the opportunities. Maybe a bit less this season, but we get the opportunities. We just have 2 strikers that don't put them away enough. Jesus, I love him, and as you were saying, like he's the same level as a Toney, maybe, but in different ways.
Yeah,
Strike in front of goal wise. There's a much difference between the two of them. Toney's much more capable to put the ball in the back of the net than Jesus.
Yeah,
so that's what we need.
Can I just add something to that, please?
Yep.
I'll go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, just I don't know when back to talk. Your signal tonight is awful, bruv. You need to get
yes,
a
because I have a problem.
You get an Ethernet cable, plug it in, no more Wi-Fi. I don't see Toney leaving one mid-table club for another. He would definitely choose Arsenal. We know Chelsea ain't staying mid-table for long. What if Toney does the Elise and just decides to stay at Brentford, which some rumours are suggesting? He might do. He might feel he owes Brentford something. What I've read is that he might sign a new deal that has a release clause and then leave in the summer. He could potentially do that. And I think short term, that hurts both Chelsea and Arsenal that both need more goals. So if he does do that, it's just good news for Brentford. You know, they might put like a 80, 90 million buyout clause in there, but we'll see. This goes to this. This is here. It says, for me, the ceiling of Chelsea's squad is the sky, whereas White, Zinchenko, Havertz, Trossard, Raya is that really exciting. There's no success yet, is what Jimmy says there, Giuseppe.
Yeah, that comment there for me, like, fair enough, mate, if that's what he thinks. But to say that, like, Chelsea, all the players Chelsea have signed have proven anything yet, like to put Trossard in there when, like, Trossard's a great player for me. Obviously, Zinchenko's and Havertz, they haven't done it. Like, Zinchenko's a quality player. He ain't maybe the level that people expect and stuff that we need. But to say we're not exciting, he's just missed out all our exciting players. He's not put Saliba. He's not put Saka. He's not put Odegaard. He's not put Rice. He's not named none of them. That's like me going, oh, why would he be excited to go Chelsea? He's got Mudryk, a very old Thiago Silva, Reece James that's always injured. Like that's you're not mentioning players that will make it exciting. You're just fitting your argument.
Jerome here is a Spurs fan, says Toney will fit Chelsea because their style of play will suit him a lot better. That's what Jerome thinks here. D says Terry, the Spurs fan, his name's Deji, by the way, is deluded. There is no guarantee that Toney will be the main man at Chelsea. Well, Nicholas Jackson might keep scoring, you know. He might keep scoring. You never know. You never know.
Hell no.
This here says players also select Chelsea because of player power. It's the other club with United which sacrifices managers, not players, when they don't perform, is what Ricky Proctor says. That's fairly true. Bro, Arsenal is a bigger club than City, but like United, it's been sleeping too much. I will say it's about City. Like, you look at the number of league titles, Champions League success. I think they're only like only about 2 or 3 trophies behind Arsenal's total.
6 without the Community Shield.
Yeah.
Is it 6? Okay, but they 6.
Yeah, but they have a treble and they have a Champions League. So, how much do you want to weigh that? How much do you want to weigh that?
And at the rate that Man City win trophies, that's in like 2.5 years, they're bigger. Like the rate they win trophies, they're going to win the World Club Championship. That's one. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, they've won the Super Cup. So yeah, I hear you. what's his name? So Jim Ratcliffe can do a funny thing when he comes. Listen, I'd love him to buy. I'd love Toney at Man United, but I can't see it personally. I'd love it though. I would love it. Here's an off-topic super chat. It says breaking news, and G is not going to like this one. But according to Anfield Edition, there are talks for Klopp to extend his contract after 2026. Do you still want him out?
I'll leave that conversation for another day. I'm not gonna sit here and have that debate because I'm having a peaceful evening. I'm having a peaceful evening.
I hear you. Right. Staying in Liverpool though. Thank you, by the way, viewers. Keep hitting like buttons to get this past 1,000 likes while we are live on the air. 10-point deduction from Everton. I'm seeing a lot of media outlets say that it's excessive, it's harsh. Even one used one of my most favorite words in the world, said it was draconian, which just means excessive. It's a posh way of saying it. A lot of the media on their side. Everton fans said that I saw one today tweet saying they're shutting their Barclays bank account down because they sponsor a corrupt organization. They're really hurting, and a lot of people will feel sorry for them. What's the panel saying? I want to go to LB first on this. What's your take? Are Everton some victims here who we should all feel sorry for? Like, what is your take on it?
Well, look, it's it's an interesting one. Obviously, they've breached FFP, right? So, you know, they're going to have to face a punishment like City have dealt with a few times, like United dealt with earlier in the season, like Liverpool have dealt with. We've all breached FFP at one point or another, and because it's the Premier League one, rather than obviously we breached UEFA. The Premier League are now going for points. I just think that they obviously feel let down because obviously they're the first ones and they're probably a little bit pissed off. But ultimately, they did break the rules. And if City break the rule, before everyone says, "Oh, fucking you're supposed to," if City break the rules, we will get punished as well. If Chelsea broke the rules, they'll get punished as well. But they did break the rules, and they've decided that a 10-point deduction is what is necessary. Now, will that get reduced on appeal? Possibly, who knows? I think that they need to be careful on just reducing shit on appeal because then everyone will just appeal it. You know what I mean? What's the point in having an appeals process? Everyone will just start appealing it. So it's a little bit it's difficult to say, isn't it? I think the thing that took me by surprise really is that there wasn't really like a clear guide as to if you breach FFP by this amount, then these are the points you get deducted. And I think that's where, and I know Mo's going to say there probably is one, but they need to put it out there in the public domain.
I thought it was released yesterday. Someone actually tweeted it yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I took a picture.
Yeah, Mo, if you can, find that and send it in the private chat.
Yeah, let me find that because they actually released the actual picture.
Yeah, Mo, what you've said there, LB, makes sense. The thing is, I listened to a podcast today that with Gary Lineker, and there was a gentleman whose name I now forget that came on that broke it down. The problem that you have, it's very bespoke because they actually lost over 300 million, not 120 million. But because of COVID, and there are certain things you're allowed to deduct from your losses. So any money that, say like your club is over the limit by 50 million, but that 50 million was spent on improving the women's team or improving stadiums or investing in youth facilities, they deduct that. So they had about 180 million deducted off of the lot. So I've seen a lot of Everton fans say, but a lot of that money was for our stadium. No, that's been deducted. What the Premier League have said, and I so far haven't seen the detail of it, but there was 4 additional claims they made to get it reduced further. And the Premier League basically just said, this is ridiculous. So it looks like no one else, no other member of the Premier League, no one of the 19 teams filed any kind of deductions on this level. And essentially what they've noticed is they were trying to keep filing for all these deductions, but then they just carried on overspending like they couldn't afford it. And I do think it's not just being £90 million over the threshold. I think it's the willy-nilly spending and just almost the way it came across, this is my interpretation, the arrogance that they'll just accept our plea for these to be deducted. And I think the Premier League said no chance. And then the independent commission have gone, no, we agree with the Premier League. This is crazy, like how much you're trying to get written off. So I do think how much you're over matters, but I think it's about the way what leads to it as well. Does that make sense? And your approach to it. It's often the same in legal cases, depending on how you behave when you're arrested, how you behave in custody, how you behave in the courtroom, will often dictate what your sentence is, not just the crime itself. But I don't know. The bit for me, I want to throw this to Deji. Like, a lot of people are making out like they are absolute. I get the fans are maybe, but they're victims, and it's too harsh and it's wrong, and we shouldn't be issuing. What's the point of FFP regulations if there's no teeth in the punishment, in your opinion?
Yeah, no, exactly that. I mean, the fact of the matter is that the whole point of it is to make things fair, and if people are breaching it, I think the main reason why we're kind of seeing the kind of hoo-ha, if that's what you want to call it, is the fact that we just haven't heard anything yet from the two clubs, Chelsea and Manchester City. I think Everton are probably feeling hard done by because they're the first ones to have 10 points deducted, and 10 points is 10 points, even if you want to say it quick. So no, we need it, and actually seeing that has probably got everyone to sit upright. As for my club, we don't have that worry because we've done things the good old-fashioned way, built a business and decided to make money in the business, and through the business started to build our stadium and so on and so forth. What we didn't have is, so yeah, I mean, we need that. We've seen it now, and everyone else has to sit up, and it's exciting times, and we just need to see the others come in my opinion. Let's see the books of the Man Cities and the Chelseas of this world, and then we can call it a day.
Can I actually just chime in here? There's a massive difference between the Man City ones, the charges, and Everton. Everton took a gamble. They're not victims. Everton, they actually spent more than they make by a certain amount, so they got point deduction. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's 6 points for that amount, and then 1 point for every 5 million extra, which is what you explained, Terry. So they exceeded that by that amount. The pictures, Martin Ziegler actually tweeted that earlier. I'm trying to find the tweet. The difference is Man City are trying to prove, they say we didn't do it. Everton said, here are the books, we did it. We overspent by that amount. So here are the points. They are trying to say, no, there's supposed to be 5 million here, 10 million. That's different. Manchester City are completely saying, we haven't done it. We didn't do that. It's on you to prove that we did wrong. Everton, there is nothing to prove. They actually presented the books. I think people just mistaken the difference between both. It's very different when you're actually saying to someone, I didn't do it, and when you audit someone and it's completely different.
I agree. I will say this. I think it's because of the word breach gets. It's like Man United in the summer breached UEFA FFP rules and got a fine. The word breach makes it sound like you've cheated. You've done something against the it sounds like you've done something. You're trying to con people. You've breached something. It should just be you've fouled it, and that's what they've done. Chelsea's situation is also different because it's only just come to light. They've not been charged. They've only just really started the investigation into Chelsea. So that's never going to be going to be resolved quickly. And City's situation is taking longer because it's being sent to an independent committee again. But what I read about that and why it's taken so long is because obviously these judges and QCs that are going to oversee it, there's a lot more pressing and serious matters in the country for them to have to deal with. And obviously this isn't something that's seen as sort of, for what we need our judges for. This isn't something that's overly pressing. So I don't like the whether people have conflated them together, because I think all three scenarios are different from one another. But I did want to ask you, Lewis, as a City fan, they're proud of your club. You love what your club has achieved. There's a lot of talk from a lot of the people, journalists, especially that are close to this, that think, look, if you are found guilty and Everton have had 10 points deducted, are you personally worried if you're found guilty about relegation, being kicked out of the league altogether, having trophies stripped? If we've seen their teeth of 10 points for being 19 million over, if your financial allegations against you are proven, how concerned are you about your status as a club and your future altogether?
Like getting relegated, I don't know how much that would annoy me or frustrate me. Like at the end of the day, I'm still watching my team play. Like I want to see my team play at the highest level, but if your team gets relegated from the Premier League, just sporting wise, like Leicester, you're just going to stop supporting your football club. A team's just going to stop supporting their team just because they get relegated. No. Am I going to stop supporting City just because they get relegated? No. So I don't actually think that's going to have much of an impact. And I actually think genuinely there'll be quite a lot of City fans that will enjoy the ride. Especially a lot of the fans that go home and away. I think a lot of them can be buzzing about going to all these new stadiums and touring the country for a few years. And probably get some cheaper tickets as well. So I ain't really that fussed about it. Obviously I don't want it to happen, and it's going to be serious if it gets proven guilty. But listen, the allegations that they're making, are very strong. And like Mo said, City are saying they're innocent. This is not the same as Everton. This is City are saying they're innocent and that they have indisputable evidence to prove that. So we'll have to see what happens with the thing. It's going to take a while. There are some people that don't really understand why Everton's case has been done so quick and City's hasn't, because they're unable to understand that someone saying, yes, I did the crime, maybe a little bit quicker than another criminal with 115 charges saying I didn't do the crime might take longer. But obviously, we just got to allow them people to be them. But listen, it's not going to affect my day. If it happens, if it was to happen, because of course we don't know, and we've got to assume at this moment that City are innocent because that's what they said and that's how the law works. I'll probably rant for a few days and then I'll carry on supporting my team. So I don't know what people. I think people want me to like have some sort of meltdown. It's really not going to be that case. We'll just see what happens. But it's going to take.
Would you be happy with your owners though, if that is proven that they cooked the books, that they paid people under the table, whatever charges? If that is proven, would you be happy with your owners? Because yes, you achieved a lot of stuff, but don't you think it will be tainted with cheating?
Okay, so I don't really.
I'm really asking genuinely because I've had answers from people saying if Man City are proven guilty, we will be tainted. These achievements will not be worth a lot.
People have tainted our achievements since we've got bought. I mean, this is not going to change how I view my football club, or I don't really care what other people think about my team and my successes. I've had this for the last decade anyway. Will it change my view on the ownership and the board? I don't know. I'll have to wait for the independent report to come out, and you'll have to read that and see exactly what they're saying has happened, and you have to see what City's response is as well. You'd have to see how seriously if they do find us guilty, you'd have to see what City do from there. Are they just going to accept it? Are they going to appeal it? Do they put out a statement? It's too difficult for me to answer that question, bro. But it's not going to affect what I think or my enjoyment when I was there at 93-20. That won't change. Memories are there, isn't it? It's not going to change my opinion, which upsets a lot of people because I think a lot of people want me to start crying. But
yes.
But no, mate, everyone's listen. I think how you've answered that though is right. You have to wait and see what if you're found guilty, and then what you're found guilty of. I think then you'll know. Then you'll know how you'll feel, because you might feel like I don't care, and maybe that's it. You may also find all those great achievements, especially if they say your name's being rubbed off trophies, your name's being taken off of if suddenly your Champions League don't exist anymore, if suddenly some of your Premier Leagues are taken away, I think that could impact it. But until it happens, if the only outcome is you get relegated and you can get straight away promoted to the Championship again, I don't think many City fans will care, because you're going to bounce straight back up and then you'll go straight back to competing. But I wanted to ask
one last thing on this, right? Is obviously you were just about to ask about FFP anyway, and obviously my take on it is that FFP is just a joke, keeps the elite at the top, which by the way Manchester City are now part of the elite, as much as some people don't wish to accept that. So as a City fan point of view, I'm all game for tightening FFP even more, turn the screw, man, because it keeps City at the top. But as a football fan, as someone that wants other teams to experience the successes that I've experienced, I want it scrapped. But here's the problem: how do they hand down this decision? So let's, for example, they say that City are relegated from the league, right? Or whether they relegate us, expel us, or whether they give us a minus 100 points. How is that going to work in principle? Can you do that halfway through the season? Can you expel Manchester City halfway through the season? If so, what happens to everyone that's played us? Furthermore, what about if City then won the appeal? Does City then have a claim against the Premier League to get back in the Premier League? How would all that work? It's incredibly difficult.
Just on that, if this independent commission rules in your favor, the what I remember reading, and I have to go read the article again, it was about 9 months ago, there is no recourse for an appeal or to go to the arbitration sport courts for arbitration for sport in the Premier League's charter that all the clubs sign up to. Once a decision has gone through this independent committee, that's it. So whichever way they rule,
but Everton are appealing.
Everton are yeah. I mean, again, that's why I've got to reread. I've got to read it again. But that's again. You might be able to appeal the decision, but I don't think you can take it to. Yeah, I don't think you can take it to the court of arbitration.
Correct.
So no, I think
arbitration.
Yeah,
but I think
those.
Work, Terry? You know what I mean? How would that?
And that's why when they have your hearing, they have to factor this all in. So they've got to also, in their own minds, go right. If we get this result. They need to, the Premier League probably already know what they're going to do. If they know what they're going to do based on the outcome, when they hold the hearing is key, because for me, it has to be done at the end of the season. It can't be done in the mid. Again, unless they're saying we are just going to minus some points, then it doesn't really, well, it does matter because it could stop you winning a league one year. If they're just going to take points away and that could lead you being relegated, then fair enough. But no, you are right about that. The interesting thing about FFP, though, I get the point that it stops teams growing. However, I don't agree. And the reason why I say that, I've seen a lot of tweets from a lot of City fans in the last few days. I wanted to get the panel's opinion on this. FFP was brought in to stop teams like City getting to the top. But you are on the top. Under FFP, and you were a small club, but under FFP, you become the best team in the world. So for me, unless you're admitting that you know your owners have cooked the books, FFP doesn't stop small clubs becoming the best teams in the world because you've done it. So that's my only argument and pushback to FFP is there to stop teams getting bigger and better. Newcastle 18 months ago were in the relegation zone. They're now a Champions League team, and it's been completely under FFP. I think if you have good owners that are willing to invest and are willing to work with, and listen, we all know that all these billionaire owners know a lot of other rich people, bring in sponsors, and they're committed to the club. I think you can grow and get yourself up to the top. The one thing we haven't there are examples in Scotland. Rangers, there's another team, I think it was Gretna. There've been examples of smaller teams in England. Portsmouth nearly went out of business. Leeds nearly went out of business. I do personally believe if FFP didn't come in a decade ago, I just look at the experience my brothers went through at Leyton Orient when they nearly went out of business. I do believe some massive clubs would have gone bust in the last 10 years if owners were allowed to come in and spend what they want, create huge debts against the club or expenditure against the club, that if they then pulled their money away, would see them fold. Now, I do think Sheikh Mansour, whatever people think of him, wouldn't be one of those people. The same as Roman wasn't one of those people to Chelsea. But for every great billionaire owner that's come in, there's been far more awful ones when you start going through these billionaires, not just in the UK, but across Europe. So I understand why people think it's there to protect the elite clubs at the top and stop anybody from growing. But I've seen City, and who were not tiny, hadn't done anything for 30 odd years, under FFP become the best team in the world. So I don't necessarily think it stops you. I do think there needs to be checks and balances. I do think we need to ensure that clubs are safeguarded against overspending that could see them go out of business, you know, in 5 to 10 years time. And maybe, and they are adjusting it now. It's all going to be based on the turnover of a football club. Now you can spend up to 70% of that turnover as an example. So it is slightly changing now, but look, okay. I get where you guys are kind of coming from.
Can I respond to some of that then?
Yeah, go on, mate.
Some good comments there. Okay, so the problem that I have with the City example and the Newcastle example, because you are right on those two. The problems is that City were not a small club, you know, and nor are Newcastle. They are big clubs. My problem is actual small clubs that maybe get less than 20,000 fans in the stadium per season. They're not going to be at Luton Town and not going to be able to generate the sort of revenues that are going to be able to spend money on the best players. Because whatever anyone says, to win the title, to win Champions Leagues, bar anomalies, you have to spend a lot of money. So using City and Newcastle, I think, is an unfair example because they were both sleeping giants. So apply that to separate clubs, and I don't particularly think that works.
So and
can I give one example here, please?
Mo, 1 second, mate. I'll go back to you in a second. I think that's a fair point. My view on it is very much this, though. If a billionaire, I don't care where he's from, if a billionaire comes in and buys Luton and goes, right, I'm just going to spend £3 to £4 billion in the next 5 years buying all the best players in the world. If he does that for, say, 3 years, creates a wage bill which is 600 million a year, they've got debts everywhere because the way clubs buy, they wouldn't just buy it, they might buy cash, but huge wage bills, invested those, and then just one day says, I'm done, and walks away, the likelihood is that tiny club that doesn't have a big fan base will never be able to sustain those bills, and they would go out of business. So it would be, do you know that when you look at lottery winners, I'm going to get this percentage wrong, but a massive percentage of UK lottery winners end up bankrupt because they overspend in the beginning, which actually creates lots of, and then they run out of money and they can't afford to up the upkeep of the big house they buy, the cars they buy, the things they invest in, and they end up going bankrupt. So I'm not saying that owners shouldn't be able to maybe put more money into their club, but they also have to create a safeguard that means if that owner, whether he dies, which is what happened to a club in Scotland, they had a multi-millionaire that was pumping money in and took a non-league Scottish club right to the Prem, They got to the Scottish Cup final, and the guy that pumped the money in died, and his family went, well, we're not going to keep pumping the money in. But a handful of years later, that club doesn't exist anymore. So you have to protect against that. When you're a bigger club like a City and a Newcastle, you might be able to absorb that owner not pumping that same amount of money in anymore. But if you just allow, in my opinion, billionaires to spend exorbitant amounts of money, one, you distort the market, which can hurt other football clubs. Two, what happens if that money stops? All those clubs go out of business. And if they go out again, and as much as you're enjoying what you're enjoying now, imagine it went the other way and you spent loads of money for 10 years and then your club ceased to exist. There has to, what I believe you would say at the other end of that is, why the fuck wasn't there checks and balances? Why is there no regulation against this?
No, and I agree with that, Terry.
The reason I say that is because,
that.
What do you mean FFP don't address it?
Well, FFP allows you to make losses. So you could, so you don't have to have a billionaire that comes in and
it allows you to make losses, but it stops owners from being able to pump, for instance, the UEFA one anyway. You can't pump more than £100 million into your club every 3 years towards transfers, as an example. You can pump money in for stadiums and other areas, but it limits how much they can pump in. The reason they do that is because if owners could do whatever they wanted, they could go, right, there's 200 million for Mbappe. He doesn't really want to play for Luton, but what we'll do, we're going to pay him £6 million a week in salaries. Imagine then that billionaire dies. How the hell could Luton now afford to pay that 5-year contract at £6 billion? They go out of business.
I agree, but you can say the same about any championship club. Most championship clubs lose money every year and therefore are funded by their owners. So not all these clubs have got, Mbappe's at the football club. A lot of these clubs are funded by the owner. If the owner just suddenly stops putting money in, guess what? They're going to go bankrupt. FFP does not address the concern that you're raising. And by the way, I completely agree with what you're raising. I just think FFP doesn't address that in the slightest, because it doesn't. It allows you clubs to make losses.
So I agree that it still needs reform. So I'm not here saying that FFP is perfect. I like what they're moving it towards, which is you're only allowed to spend up to 70% of your club's turnover on players, agent fees. That for me is always, do you know why that's always been the way? Because net spend isn't real. What clubs actually do is they have an amount of their turnover they limit. So it's always been between 60 and 70%. Man United now spend the same amount of money on player expenditure as it did 30 years ago. We've always spent about 65% of our income. It's obviously our income's got bigger, so we spend more. That's a better way of doing it because it should create less losses. I totally get what you're saying about the championship clubs, they lose money. The difference is this though. The amount of money those clubs lose is a lot to you and I, but there are so many people in the world that can pick up the tab for that if they have to sell. If you start having like unlimited spending and you suddenly have a wage bill of 500 million, there's a finite amount of people that could ever save those clubs from going out of business. So I still think they've got to do a lot more work. I said for years, I don't think we protect the pyramid enough in football. I still think more needs to be done for the smaller clubs in the lower leagues. I know a lot of people especially people that are outside the UK, just love the Prem. I'm someone that cares about the overall pyramid of English football because I think it's very, very important. So I do think more needs to be done in that regard. But I do think that it's sensible to have checks and balances in places that stop clubs from going. And just watching what my brothers went through with Orient, and they were so lucky they got saved, ironically, by Dunkin' Donuts right at the end. They nearly went out of business. And the way it basically happened is a billionaire bought them off of Eddie and the Earns and Matchroom. And basically said, this guy was worth about 7 billion. He was richer than Abramovich at the time. Said, I'm making you a Champions League club in the next decade. The guy suddenly put like championship players into this League One team, was paying 20 grand a week. No, like stupid amounts of money. And after like a year, he got bored. Sold and loaned out all the players and then told the manager you can only pay the academy players. Wouldn't let him play any of the established guys because they didn't want to pay their wages. They got relegated year after year, ended outside of league football, and they were on the brink of going bust. So I've seen it happen. And the only reason I believe we haven't had it happen to a giant club in England, one, the Premier League generates a lot of money, and two, because FFP came in, I do think somebody would have been destroyed by now. But it's one of those things. We don't have the... What would we rather see? Would it happen or wouldn't it? Because we've got FFP, or would we rather react and put something like FFP in place after the fact, watching a Man United or a Liverpool or an Arsenal or an Aston Villa go out of business and whack? For me, I think it's right to have it. However, I do sort of think there needs to be reform within, like you said, there will be 100%. I'm not saying it's perfect at all. Terry, who is qualified enough to regulate football? Oh, lots of people. I don't know who exactly they are, but you know, it depends on what element of football you're looking at. Let's go to some of these super chats here, boys. This says that if City are found guilty and they don't get a big punishment, the Prem will be in trouble after the president precedent, is set with Everton. Yeah, I mean, I think look, if City are found guilty of 115 charges and a lot of them are financial, the punishment is going to be sizable. I don't think even the most diehard City fan is not expecting a big punishment if they're found guilty of everything that they've done. I mean, if they don't, and they only get like 5 points, then everyone's just going to, everyone is just going to start cooking the books, aren't they? If they're guilty of it and they get a little, and it's only worth 5 points, then you might as well cheat. Like it's crazy to me. It really is. I think the issue is that administration is only 9 points. How can FFP breach be worse than that? Might as well go bust. Well, look, you mentioned Luton earlier. Luton had a 30-point deduction not that long ago, like for being in financial trouble. So I do hear what you're saying there. Malaga was a Champions League team in 2012. Look what happened. Great point. Great point. Would relegating City and Chelsea open the door for the Super League? Thoughts? It can't, because all the clubs have signed an agreement that they would never break off and do that again. So I don't think it would. Plus, I don't think it would personally, but there we go. Prem grasping at straws, length of grass, lol. City will get charged of something non-financial. If City were worried, they wouldn't be extending the Etihad. Like, I'll ask opinion of the panel here. I want to go to Giuseppe first on this. Do you think City are guilty, or do you think they're in it? Like, what do you personally think?
Listen, I don't know. I think if 130 odd, there's going to be some of them that are going to be.
I definitely think the grass was too long. Yeah,
I think the grass was too long. I think the toilets weren't in the right check, and stuff like that. Now, listen, I think there's probably been. I think the most likely stuff is the sort of backhand payments and stuff. I think if anything, like, is that cheating? Is it cheating? Listen, to touch on Everton about this. Everton, you do the time, you do the crime. You do the crime, you do the time. Yeah. But they should be happy that it's happened this season with such a poor bottom of the league. I just had to put that in there. But because they will survive this season with the 10-point gap. But for Man City, listen, at the end of the day, if they've done it or not, how do we know for the facts? When it comes out, we don't know half of the stuff they're being. No one can come in and tell me all 130 things that they're being done for. Yeah. So for me, I think.
I want to throw this out to you and the rest of the panel. One thing I would say is this, and I heard someone say it today on TalkSport, and it was a caller. What both Chelsea and City are facing, though, in terms of a lot of the charges we do know about, especially with Chelsea's, because Chelsea have G'd themselves up. It's all the types of things that they were being accused of when they first started spending their money, like the offshore accounts, and this doesn't add up. How can they have this sponsorship deal? It's too much money for a club their size. How can they keep affording to sack managers and buy people? There was always these accusations they were cooking the books, and now they're the two clubs who are up against it. Do you think that's because they have been doing it, or do you think there's always been a witch hunt to go after these two football clubs because of the Abramovich and Sheikh Mansour era? Do you think it's a conspiracy against them, or do you think there's no smoke without fire?
Mate, there's no smoke without fire, my good friend. I mean, if we were talking of 1 or 2 charges, then you can say, boy, this is random. But 115 charges is not something to be sniffed at. And just look, LB was talking about it. The rapid change. I mean, yes, Man City is a what I call a heritage club, a club to be respected, but they were never part of the Big Six. It took a big financial investment for them to get to where they are. Big boy money that I wish Spurs had, because if Spurs had that money, we'd be having a different conversation today. And look, the rest is history, as they say. And we can't be allowing teams to be able to do what these clubs have done and get away with it. So for me, I think there's no smoke without fire. I think we will find that the both clubs will probably get charged. The only thing is, with the amount of money that's involved in football, the revenue in the Premier League, will the sanctions that they place on these two clubs, will it be sufficient? That would be the question. And I think that's where a lot of people would see that there's potentially, an us and them, or an elitism going on in the Prem, because I'm not convinced that they're going to allow big clubs like Chelsea and Man City to be heavily sanctioned if we do find that they're guilty for 1 or 2 charges.
What I want to know is why it's only coming out now. Definitely the Chelsea one, obviously, but the Man City one, if they've been looking for so long, I do want to know, because like the last few years, I think Man City have been one of the best teams financially, like the spend and what they get back, and that they don't really spend that much over the past few years. So what they're talking about is when the owners first come into the club. Now, I want to know why this hasn't been looked at prior. Like, it's only now coming out. Like, why are they not doing these regular checks to these big clubs every season, every couple seasons, what they've been spending, what's happening?
It's because there's no regulation. So there's no regulation. So Chelsea's have only really come about because they've found it themselves. Now there's talk. Interesting. There's talk of bringing in a regulator, and obviously the Premier League clubs will know before the media does and before we do. But if they're gonna bring a regulator in, then maybe Chelsea have seen it and gone, we better report this, because if a regulator comes in and finds it, more trouble. Cities, though, only really come to light because an ex-employee logged back into their email address and printed off emails and gave them to whatever that leaks thing is, and it all came out that way. So if that ex-employee of Cities hadn't leaked these emails, this may not be here. So because there is no regulation, that clubs are not all. It's not like the banks have regulators that come in and go through their books. Football clubs don't have that. And I've said this as well, by the way. A lot of people think I'm biased about this. I don't believe they're the only two clubs that have done offshore payments. I don't believe they're the only two clubs that have done things that are probably against the rules. If there's no one checking what you're doing, of course people are going to break rules, because that's just human nature. Do you know what I'm saying? Imagine you could do whatever you want in your job and no one checks. Everybody will cut corners for me. Let's do some more of these super chats here. This one says Everton might be on -5 points if 9 more points are deducted. Yeah, look, I've heard about they might be sued by the clubs that have gone down. That would take so long to go through. I don't think that's going to impact them this season. But it's going to be interesting. This also mentions this. It says if City are found guilty and relegated, it gives grounds for Arsenal, United, Liverpool, Inter, etc., to sue them for loss of revenue due to titles. Look, again, it's a real hard one, Ricky. I think it all depends on what they're found guilty of and the severity of it. So if it's a handful of small things they've done wrong, 5 million here, 3 million there, then no. If it turns out they've pumped in hundreds of millions that shouldn't have been there, potentially, because that gives City a whole new look. So it's such a hard one to know who can and couldn't sue. We have no idea about the severity of it yet, but potentially you're right. At the same time, they might just get found guilty of their grass being too long. And like no one's getting sued over that. City bought all of Wenger's players. They are cheats. They're still angry about it, bruv. F1 introduced a spending cap, and it made all teams more financially stable and investable in. Also maintains sporting competitiveness.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know enough about F1.
It's not competitive at all.
Okay, then. So Verstappen doesn't win every single race, does he not?
Yeah, I don't know enough
one
about
thing. One thing I would say about that comment right there, do the top clubs care, like how competitive it is? Like, are they not sitting there? Obviously, you care to maybe a certain degree, but as an owner of a football club, I want to win. I don't care how good these other guys are. I want to win the league that I'm in. I don't care if Man United are good. I don't care if Arsenal are good. I don't care if Tottenham, Chelsea, Liverpool. If I'm Man City owner, or if I'm a Liverpool owner, or whatever, I don't give two monkeys like what these guys are doing in terms of if they're going to be good enough to battle with the league. It's not like Bayern Munich are sitting there saying, oh man, I wish the Bundesliga was tougher so we didn't keep winning the Bundesliga every single season. No, we all play sport. We've all played sport at some point in time. You want to win. You don't care how competitive everybody else is, because in your league and whatever it is that you do, you're just trying to win. Usain Bolt isn't worrying that he was beating the record and nobody else could catch him. He was just worried about him beating the record, winning consistently, doing his thing. So when we talk about this competitive stuff, I get it as a fan looking on the outside in, but sometimes I sit there and think, if I was an owner, and most people that you speak to, they don't like that. Doesn't sound like a concern for them to be like, man, I wish, like you spoke about the pyramid a bit, and I kind of agree with you in terms of the pyramid of English football. I don't know if these top guys are sitting there thinking, man, I wish Leyton Orient would be a lot better than they are down there in League 1 and 2 so that they can help us in the future and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think anybody, the top clubs would really care in that kind of way.
But they would care because Man City are dominating the league. So imagine if you go to Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Spurs, Newcastle, and tell them, How about we limit Man City's, for example, spending to be exactly like us, for example, or their salary cap? They would say, yeah, because it gives them more chance to win. That's why people want to be equal. It's not only about the top clubs. The top clubs within themselves, they want to be equal to have, because each owner want to win, but they can't win unless it's competitive between them. Because look, 5 leagues in 6
True.
years.
Yeah, true.
It's not competitive for the others.
Do they want to win though? I've got to take you up on that comment. Do the owners of these clubs actually want to win, Mo? Does the Man United
Not
owners
all
wanna
of them.
win?
I get your point, but also they want it to be competitive because it pumps more money. Okay.
No, what they want,
True.
what they
I
want,
get that
they
part,
want it to be competitive and win stuff with the minimum outlay. That's what they want, because United's owners, the Glazers, Liverpool's as well, they're not serious. They're not serious owners in terms of they want to win. They're not. Otherwise, they would have invested more money. The Glazers won't be taking dividends. They won't be leaving the ground to rot. They won't be leaving the training ground. They'd be investing in the club. They'd be invested in proper structure at the club. They're investing properly into the manager and his support staff and the players. They're not. What they want to do, this is why they're coming at City, because City are now making them all look silly. And now you've got all these protests against the Glazers. If United had won a couple of Premier Leagues in the last 10 years, maybe like 4, and maybe another Champions League, there'd probably be some still Glazers out, but probably most people would just be saying, well, we're still winning. The fact is, they're not winning anything, and therefore they're looking at City saying they're making us like...
And that's where, Lewis, and that's where I agree with you, and it's why I like this FFP argument, or profit and sustainability. It's nuanced, and what I mean by that is, your owners do want to win, and your owners are willing to spend whatever possible. I still think there needs to be for instance, this is the way you could circumvent it. And if this was the case, and even though I want it to be competitive, I'd say this is fair. For however much, let's say, for instance, your owner pumps in so many billions, and your wage bill is, I don't fucking know, it's 1.3 billion a year because he's paying all the best players in the world dumb money. As long as he puts money into a bond somewhere that covers those wages until the end of the contract, and any debts you have are covered to the end, and the Premier League hold that money in an account somewhere, then let them spend what they want. Because then if your owner leaves, there's a big pot of money there to pay all that off and slowly downscale your squad. Like, for me, it's about balance here. I don't think owners should be able to just spend what they want, however they want, when they want, because there are not very many Sheikh Mansours. There'd be so many clubs that would go out of business. At the same time, there should be pressure on owners to actually invest. The fact that the Premier League have allowed the Glazers to own Man United anyway and do what they've done to our club, that should also be against the rules. You shouldn't have an owner that's not pumping money, like based on their net worth or based on the commitment or size of the club. The fact that Glazers haven't put 100 million you can put in every 3 years just for transfers. Our owners in 18 years have not put 1 penny into the football club. So I think both things, too much spending can be a problem. It can make you go bust in the end, but no investment, that should be just as much against the rules, in my opinion. Couldn't agree with you more. This year says a salary cap in the NFL, but still the best run. Listen, I get you. I don't like the way American sports does things. I don't like the idea that if you lose, you get all the best picks and that. I think if you're winning and you're successful, you should keep benefiting off of that. Like, I don't like the way the Americans do it, but that's just me. Bundesliga teams is partly owned by the fans.
Yeah, that's shocking.
51%.
That's shocking.
And look
People
at
actually
just
want
take
that in
that
this
as
country.
example, but look how competitive the league is. It's not competitive.
No one's investing into a club spending billions of pounds to have 49% of the club and still get beat off Bayern Munich. So I can't believe actual people want this in this country. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Do you know what I think it comes down to, though, Lewis? It's like there aren't many Sheikh Mansours. There is not enough Sheikh Mansours in the world for all 120 professional football clubs in England to have one. That's the problem. There's not. So I think the way fans look at it as, for a lot of clubs, I think it's they want some fan ownership because they're more likely to get an owner that fucks them up than makes them like Man City. So they want something to protect them against that, I think.
Well, that's when the new owners come in. That don't they have them checks in it? So that's what you keep on speaking about the owners.
No, mate, no. You're right. You're right. But
I
think the reason the fans want it is because they don't trust the way the checks are done. Does that make sense? It's almost because
yeah. Listen, it's difficult in it because I get what you're saying. At the end of I'm coming from the point of I want other fans to experience the rise that I've experienced as a Manchester City fan. Like genuinely, I want people, but obviously there is the other side of that, which you are right in raising of. that has happened to other clubs, Portsmouth, for example, and it's destroyed other clubs. So it is a very fine balancing act. But what we can't do, we can't remove that dream of someone coming into a club and saying, I'm going to renovate it, I'm going to increase the stadium, pump money in, and you know, like Wrexham, you can't remove that.
But that's also it though. Look how Wrexham are growing. Look at Brighton and where they are. Like, this is why I get where you're coming from. There are lots of small teams that have grown. Look where Bournemouth are. Look where Brentford are. These teams are minuscule. They are tiny in the grand scheme of things. You know, to build a new stadium for Brentford costs less than an average top level Premier League player. Like, I know it's millions. It's a lot of working class people like us, but they're tiny. Like, I remember, like, Fulham are another example. I remember being a kid going to watch Leyton Orient play. We used to get free season tickets at our school because it was right next to the ground. I remember Leyton Orient and Fulham playing each other all the time. And they're now in the Prem. Now, they haven't gone to the next level up, but they thought they would because they had Mohamed Al Fayed that bought them. Now, back in the day, that was a lot of money. Like, it's not anymore compared to these billionaires. But there's some super chats here. Evening, Terry. Everyone, Leeds United overspent in the early 2000s, and look where they are in football. This is very true. The Premier League won't find City guilty until Pep leaves. Listen, Mike, I love you, but I don't believe in those conspiracy theories personally. It's only 115 charges because they don't have access to City's books, so they don't know what to actually charge them for. Potentially, although we have to wait again. That sort of stuff. I hear you, bro. Thanks for the super chat, but it's just speculation. I don't know anything about that. Do the FFP rules provide for the penalties? What is the source of the power pertaining to dishing out points deductions or relegating teams?
I think that may be what Mo was saying before, wasn't it, with the guidance? But I think they need to.
In Europe
really...
is different. In Europe, like Inter, for example, we did kind of similar to Everton, and we had a limited Champions League squad for 2 years. So there are rules to it, right? In England, it's different than Europe, and there is a book somewhere you can find it.
Yeah, I think Chelsea will be in less trouble because they self-snitched. Maybe they will get a big fine, maybe 5-10 points. Yeah, look, and some of the charges City are under is for not cooperating, and that's either going to go one way or the other. But I understand it's interesting because Big Steve said this to me. Because the Premier League and the UEFA have asked to see the books, and we've said no because our lawyers have advised us to. That's either going to go their way or it's going to go against them. It's either going to be seen as, what are you hiding and you haven't cooperated, you're in more trouble, or, well, there's no proof, therefore do one. But look, if the regulators come in, that changes everything. Everton penalised for Chelsea and Man City. No, Everton haven't been penalised because City and Chelsea are potentially cheated. Like, again, Everton fans keep doing this. Your situation's different from anything that any other club has done. The UK government has been threatening the Premier League to regulate them, and the Prem doesn't want that. So they are now policing harshly to prove to the government they can police it themselves. It's a fair point, to be fair. If City is guilty, just take away the title, starting with from the league. 130-point deduction, from League One, and then 130-point reduction. If they are not guilty, City will be looked at with a sour taste in the public mouth.
Mm-hmm. Which obviously City not happy with, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Question: if Chelsea's project fails, like we all want, which team outside the top six can you guys see taking over City's position in the top six?
Newcastle,
isn't it?
Newcastle. There isn't really another one, lads. Newcastle.
Yeah, it's Newcastle.
It will just save Tottenham.
Have you heard of the Arsene Wenger offside rule? Is expected for the 20. Yeah, I don't know if it's good or bad. Do you know what's funny? You can still be offside. People go, he won't be offside by a millimeter now. You can be.
Same.
You
just moved the line up. He just moved the line up.
Yeah.
Understand what he did. Like, he just moved the line up.
What I would say about the rule, fast players now, if you're caught offside now as a fast player, you need to be subbed off straight away because there's no need. You don't even need to be on the edge. You can just you shouldn't be getting offside anymore. But there we go. 20 million over FFP, and it is a 10-point deduction. The Premier League was prompt against. Okay, I think we've already done that one. There. Show teeth against the little guy. Remember, Jerome, Chelsea haven't even been charged yet. And City's is huge, and it's going through a big tribunal. So it's a very different. Plus, by the way, Everton's losses happened ages ago. Isn't for like last season. It's been Everton's situation has been like 2 years in the making as well, 3 years in the making. So
It's 3 years in a row. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's taken a long time to get to this point. Resorting to rule violations in pursuit of victory is called cheating and warrants disciplinary action. City is guilty. They should face. If City is guilty, they should face the consequences, and I'm sure they will. Actually, amazing. If City were found guilty and they cheated, Liverpool would have multiple prems, and they would be at the standard and they would be the standard of owners. I mean, listen, I think we have to wait and see see the wood for the trees for that, because I also think there's a few gooners I follow that hate Arteta, and I think they're desperate for City to be found innocent. Otherwise, because they said Arteta, like suddenly it changes your perspective on certain managers and were they really good or were they really bad if a team has cheated to get to where it's got to. But that's all pie in the sky until we know what's happened. City overstate its revenue, big crime, not Chelsea.
Chelsea are the ones that have self-reported themselves, Dinishine. So
yeah,
I'm not sure you got that one the right way. I mean, you might be right on City. Who knows? We'll find out. But Chelsea have self-reported for their crimes. So
Chelsea's ones look like Chelsea's ones are like, well, we've got to pay £30 million for this player, but we obviously can't afford to. So we'll do an offshore payment from an account to that club for 30 million, and we'll report the transfer as a free transfer. That is no different to increasing your revenue by £30 million. It's same topic, different rapidly. Question: what happens if Southampton and Leicester City's cases against Everton are successful? Will they get more points deduction? It's not about points deduction.
Administration.
Well, yeah, that could be sued for a certain amount of money, which could then send them into administration. The irony, FFP could actually make a club go bust. The irony.
That's what Leo was saying. That's what LB was saying. It's actually Everton. If they lose that lawsuit and get minus 300 million, I think that reaches the limit where now you'll have to take the club from the owners. You're done now. We're taking the club from you. You're done.
No, it's actually crazy when you deep that. Wouldn't Arsenal worry about FFP? Well, they said they're close to the limit of it, but again, maybe. I would have to look. The thing is, their owners can just pump in £100 million and it's sorted. City already doing what you are saying, Terry. I don't know what you're referring to, my bro. Sorry. Mendy is planning to sue Man City for years of unpaid wages.
Yes, just came up.
And he'll probably, I don't know the way the law works, but he was found innocent, wasn't he, of all charges, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but he was locked up.
Why would you sue City though? City didn't lock him up.
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm not getting involved in that one. No. Juventus lost their titles. Why can't City?
Massive difference. Juventus were proven to bribe referees. So on the pitch, definitely bribe referees.
It is different. Again, Gavin, it's different, but again, we don't know the severity of these. I mean, if it turns out that they've £1 billion into the club that shouldn't over a 10-year period, and they argue that they're only able to build these great squads with that money, then you could argue them being taken away. If they end up being fined for like £5 million, if that's all it's for, that hasn't changed the grand scheme of things. So I think, Gavin, we have to wait and see, one, if they're found guilty, and secondly, the severity of it before we know. Like, yeah, we really do. I see Chelsea signing Usherman in the summer of 2024. You could be right, Kingsley.
Or anything.
No, you don't care.
Do
you think he'll join Chelsea if they're in the Championship? I don't know. Maybe it'll be interesting to see. Can you imagine the points total that City could get in the Championship as well? By the way, like genuinely, I reckon you could win 46 games out of 46. It'll be a laugh.
I actually think if City get relegated, I think the players will leave.
Of course they will.
Think they will stick.
No, they'll have to, because in the Championship there are limits to how much salary you can pay and how much losses you can make, and they would definitely make a loss because there's no money coming in, so they have to sell people. But listen, that's all pie in the sky. Listen, boys, I want to thank you all for coming on the show today and giving us your thoughts and feelings. The viewers, you know how much you guys amaze me. How humbling it is that you all come here every single day to watch. The super chat is you're brilliant. Everyone is at the like button. A big thank you to each and every single one of you. If you want to check out my new show that comes out every Saturday on Rumble, the link for that is pinned into our live comment section. It doesn't get released on YouTube. I want to thank everyone who's watched that. We've done 2 shows so far. The first one got just over 250,000 views. The one on Saturday's done about 174,000 views. So I want to thank everybody that has subscribed and watched and tuned into us over there. If you want to go check it out, click the links in the pinned in the live comment section here. I'll honestly back with another super chat. Says, sorry, on my super chat about who can take Chelsea's place in the top 6. I forgot any team not named Newcastle. And in my opinion, it's Villa, who's a sleeping giant.
Might be. It's very
Maybe,
very valid.
yeah.
They are spending. They have a top manager. They are on the right track.
They
They're
look
running
good.
the club well. No, why not?
Yeah,
They look good.
no, could be. Listen, everyone,
Thank you.
thank you all very, very much indeed for tuning in today. Giuseppe, well done on your debut here. Good to see you again, Deji G. Of course, LB and Mo here very, very regularly as well. Cheers, boys. Always appreciate having you on. Until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see everybody again soon.